Hi, my name's Nat, and with Rachel, my wife, we run the Book Typesetters, and we're passionate about helping you realise your publishing dreams. We've put together this video which gives you 4 tips on things to consider when self-publishing, and we've put it together in association with the States of Independence Festival. Now there's a workbook that goes with it, so feel free to use that as you work through this video, and if you have any questions, please do get in touch with us.
For this video, we have assumed that you have fully edited your book and are ready to move on to the publishing phase. So you may have edited your book yourself, hired a professional, or asked friends, family and other writers to help you along that way. So the 4 things we are going to look at are printing, typesetting, cover design and marketing. So we'll begin with our first point, printing and also ebooks. The first thing we're going to look at is printing. We're going to have a look at print-on-demand services, a short print run and ebooks. Print-on-demand. There are lots of print-on-demand services online, so shop around, read up on them, ask other people their opinions before choosing one. The print-on-demand services generally work by you uploading your files for the text and for the cover, and a reader can then order direct from their website and pay them directly for your book. The print-on-demand service will then print the book and post it directly to the reader who has ordered your book. The fee that the reader has paid will then have the following deductions before any profit is passed to you. So the print-on-demand service will take out the cost of printing, postage and packaging and their commission. For short print runs, you will send your files directly to a printer. You will also pay them an upfront cost for printing your books. They will print your books to whatever size you require. Some printers can print quite small print runs, others there will be a minimum order, so have a shop around and see which suits your needs. The books will then be once they're printed, they will be sent direct to you, or you can also involve a distributor to distribute your books out, but this will be an additional fee. So once you've received your books, you can sell them in however many ways you wish to sell them, but you can then retain all the profits from those books. For ebooks, again, there are different providers online who have platforms where you can upload your books to, where people can download them onto various different devices, or you can actually set up your own website where people can download your files for the ebook. So the reader will pay for the ebook either directly to your own website or to an ebook provider that you've chosen. The file size of the ebook may impact the cost, as larger file sizes, such as ones with loads of pictures and colouring, can increase the size, so it consequently increase the cost to download. So it is worth also looking at your own website if this is where you're going to be putting your ebook to download, and if there is any restrictions on downloads from your website as well. You can also choose to use a combination of services. There are some providers out there who will do ebooks and print on demand. But if you are using multiple ways to distribute your book or multiple providers, it is important to check the terms and conditions to make sure there's no restrictions in place, both on the price of your book across different providers and also whether they are happy for you also to use multiple providers to print and distribute or download your books.
One important thing to consider when you're getting your book printed is the size of it. Now usually when you print things at home you print in A4, but A4 and A5 are standard for a sheet of paper but not for books. So the main standard for a printed book and the types of things like a short story or a novel would be in a B format. Now there's a UK B format and there's a US B format as well, and they're slightly different. So the US is slightly narrower and slightly taller than a UK format. So those are two things to consider when you look at the printing book. There's also a slightly smaller size, which is an A format, or you could go for an even larger size for your book, such as a Royal or a American Royal, which is slightly smaller than a Royal, or there's a combination that's between the B format and the Royal, which is called a demi size. Now these bigger formats usually work well if you've got lots of pictures in there, because it gives it more room for you to display those pictures. Alternatively, you could go for a custom size of any size you want, but this does depend on the printer you use. Some printers that you go to will only offer you certain set sizes, others will give you any custom size. Although bear in mind that a custom size might also cost you more money than the standard sizes. But if you're not quite sure what kind of book size you want, go along to your bookshelf, have a look and find a book that you like and simply measure it to see what it's like, and that will give you an idea of what type of format it is and which one you want to get printed for your book.
Another consideration for printing is whether you're going to be printing your book in black and white or whether there's any colour. Now, a page is considered to be coloured if there is anything on it that isn't black. So some printers will charge per page, other printers will charge per whole book if there is one coloured item in there. So they may charge you for colour printing when you only have one coloured photo. So when looking at whether you want colour in your book, you need to decide whether it is necessary, what impact it has on the reader, and what your budget is for the book. Also with ebooks, if there is coloured pages in it, this will increase the size of the ebook download, and therefore you will be charged a greater fee every time someone downloads your ebook. The next point to consider when self-publishing is typesetting. Typesetting is the design, the style and the layout of the internal pages of your book. You can typeset your book yourself, or you can hire a professional to typeset it. Some printing companies also will typeset your book for you or be able to recommend a typesetter. Equally, typesetters may be able to recommend a printer. So it's worth asking around if you are looking for professionals and weighing up your options.
If you're looking at typesetting your book yourself, there's particular bits of software you need to look at. So when you're writing your book, the chances are that you used a word processing app to do that. Now you can use word processing apps to do typesetting, but it's going to give you some limitations on what you're doing. Whereas if you use specialist desktop publishing or DTP software, it will give you a lot more control over the words on your page. It's particularly important if you've got a lot of images and graphics in your book. It will allow you to manipulate this a lot more and give you a better finish to the pages. Now when you're looking for software, have a look on the internet. There's plenty of options out there for any budget. So you can go for a subscription model for some software, you could go for a one-time fee to use it, or free options as well. So the other thing is a lot of software provides free trials, so have a go, do some research and see what you can find out there. The other important thing to look at is making sure that the software you use matches the printing requirements that your printers have. One page in your typeset book, which is unlikely to appear in your manuscript when you're writing your book, is the imprint page. Now this appears somewhere at the beginning of the book, and it has details of things like the copyright notices that you have in there. It should also include the edition of the book that you're publishing, as well as the year that it's been published. It should also include the printer details. Now there's a debate online on whether this is a recommendation or actually a legal requirement, so it's probably best just to add those details in anyway. The imprint page is another place that you can put any requirements for notifying people of the reproduction rights of any images that you've used either throughout your book or on the cover. Now the imprint page can also be a place where you put your ISBN and any contact details that you might want to provide with the book. You may also wish to include a disclaimer for fictional books which state that any characters within the book, if they resemble any persons living or dead, is purely coincidental. We've talked a lot about typesetting a printed book, but the other consideration is typesetting an ebook. Now ebooks can have different typesetting requirements to printed books, mainly because ebooks exist as flowable content, so there's not really any distinct start or end to pages. The other thing is there's no distinct margins because people can view the ebook on different devices, so if the device is bigger or smaller, it will change how the ebook looks on each of those. So you need to typeset your ebook with bearing these things in mind. So we would advise to have a typeset version for your printed book and a typeset version for your ebook, because they're two distinct medias that you'll need to produce. The typeface is one area you want to look at when typesetting your book. Now when you're looking at the text of your book, you can split it generally into two distinct areas. One is the body part of your text and the other is the headings. Now the typeface you choose for your body has to be very clear, has to be very readable, because it's the main text that flows through your book, making up the paragraphs, or if you're setting poetry, it will be the main body of the poetry. So it needs to be very clear font, very clear typeface you're using for that. For your headings, that's a different matter. You can be a bit more stylistic with your headings. The headings will be items such as the title of your book at the beginning of the book, chapter titles that you have throughout your book. Now this is the opportunity to use a typeface which matches your genre, matches the feel of your book. Now the typeface you use for the body and the heading can be the same. You just might want to use different fonts for your heading, such as fonts are the styles within a typeface, such as bold and italic. The alternative is to have two very contrasting typefaces. Now do a little research on the internet and you'll find out typeface pairing that you can match up headings with body. Now this is also something that you'll want to consider when you're designing your cover as well, the typeface you use for that. And in general, in designing and your cover and typesetting, the recommendation is maybe to have a maximum of 3 typefaces you're using in one go, just so that there's consistency within your design.
Third point to consider is your cover design. Now again, this is something you can do yourself or you can hire a professional to do. Often typesetters will also do cover design work. So when doing it yourself, you can use a range of different softwares. Again, there are free ones out there, there are ones you can purchase, or there are ones on subscription. So just like with the typesetting software, have a look around, have a play with the free trials and see which one you get on with. When you're thinking about what to do for your cover design should appeal to the readers. It should intrigue them and make them want to pick it up. Have a look at similar books in the same genre. have a look at what kind of colours they use, what kind of imagery they use, and start to make some notes to give yourself an idea of what type of cover you may want to do that fits in with this genre and the themes in your book. On the cover, you obviously will be including the title of the book, any subtitles and your name. If you've created a publishing company for yourself, then you may want to include this on the front cover or its logo. Sometimes some people just include this on the spine and the back, so that's totally your choice. Equally, on the spine you will also need to repeat your name and the title of the book. And then on the back cover, this is where you'll want to put your ISBN, maybe the price of the book, a barcode if you wish to generate one of them. Again, you can use free software online to generate the barcodes, or barcode fonts. So there are different ways to generate those yourself and add them on. You also will want to put the back cover copy, and maybe a photograph of yourself if you so wish. The back cover copy is going to speak to your reader, it's going to sell it to them. So you need to think carefully about what you're including in this and whether it's making the reader want to open it and read it. Equally, you might want to include any reviews for your book. Another thing to consider when designing your cover is the size, and we need to make sure it matches the size of your the typeset part of your book as well. So for paperbacks, this is going to be the same size. For hardbacks, it's going to be slightly larger. You also may want to consider whether you want to include a dust cover or a jacket around the cover, and obviously design this accordingly. Your cover design will need a spine, and the size of the spine is going to be affected by how many pages are in your book and the thickness of the paper. So you'll need to have decided who and where you're going to get your book printed, and then you can find out what type of paper you have to choose from, and that will tell you its thickness. And usually on the printer's site there will be a calculation area where you can work out the number of pages times the thickness of each page, and that will give you what width your spine will need to be.
When a printer produces your cover design, they'll print it on a larger piece of card than's necessary and then cut it down to size. Now the cutting process is very accurate, but there are times when there might be slight discrepancies on your design based on where it's cut. So it's important to make your design, to design your cover so that there's areas around the edge that can be cut off by the process. Now the printers will give you guidance on this safe area within the cover where you can design and put the most important elements of your design so that they're not cut off in the trimming process. Conversely, if you've got graphics that come off the page and that you want them to be cut off by the design, this area is called the bleed. Now a lot of designs will go into the bleed so that when the printers cut the cardboard, that part of the design disappears. It's so that you don't get a situation where your image goes right up to the gap, right up to the edge of your design, and then when the printer cuts it, there's a small, thin, say white mark where the design hasn't quite covered. Again, your printer will be able to give you details on the minimum bleed you'll need, although the industry standard is about 3mm.
Another thing to consider are the reproduction rights of any images used within your book or for the front cover. So if you've used photographs, prints, images, you will need the reproduction rights from the original source or the original owner. Even if you have taken a photograph yourself, you may need some to gain the reproduction rights. For example, if you have gone to some gardens or a stately house and taken some photographs in the grounds made for a statue, then you will need to ask permission because they are the owners of that statue in the grounds. So sometimes gaining permission will cost a fee. Sometimes it's free, and you will need to give credit to the original artist or the owner in your copyrights page. There are websites that give royalty-free images. So there are lots of these online. Some of them are free, some of them you pay a subscription for. There are also images where you can pay per image online, and they're quite reasonably priced. So do some research from that point of view. It's also a word of caution when sourcing images directly from the internet. Do be careful of who owns the original copyright, as you cannot just download any image and use it. There is usually some rules on where that image can be used and reproduced.
One other area of consideration when self-publishing is marketing your book. Now, the ISBN, which is the International Standard Book Number, is a great way of getting your book recognised by shops that you wish to sell your book in and recognised quickly online. Now, an ISBN can be purchased in the UK by Nielsen. Now, to purchase an ISBN through Nielsen, you'll set yourself up as a publisher and register with them, and you'll go through details of your book to register the ISBN. Now, you can purchase one ISBN, or you can purchase a bulk of ISBNs. Now, one ISBN is connected to one particular type of book. So if you're interested in publishing your book as both a hardback and a paperback, that would require two ISBNs. So think about how you're going to produce your book and whether you're intending to produce more than one book. Second editions will also require a second ISBN for that. So think about what you're going to do with your book and maybe future books that you might be producing. Some print-on-demand companies will provide a reference number. This might be an ISBN and it might not be. Now, the thing to consider is whether you want to purchase an ISBN or use the free number that the print-on-demand company use. The other thing to consider is using an ISBN for an ebook. Now, ebooks do come with their own unique number so that they can be referenced online or through the resellers that you're using. Not everybody uses an ISBN to identify an ebook, but it is one thing to consider.
So when looking at marketing your book, it's good to think about marketing your book early on. This is because you potentially may want to get pre-sales for your book to generate a bit of income, or also to get people knowing that your book is coming out. So if you think about a film or other books that are produced by famous authors, you will sometimes get a bit of a lead up. You know that it's coming out and when its publication date, and you can pre-order books. So there are lots of places where you can market. Online is a great place. You've got all different social medias. You can set up a website for the book or for your own publishing company or just yourself. You can gather followers through social media or by setting up an emailing system so you can notify people who are interested in your book about its status and when it might be coming out. It's also important to think about your genre of your book and where your audience may hang out. So are they on the internet and social media? Or do they go to other places? Are they interested in sci-fi? Might they go to science fiction conventions or a gaming cafe? Are they interested in romance, and what other things might they like? Might they go to local arts and crafts markets or cafes? So think about where your audience might also hang out, and see if you can advertise your book, or maybe even do readings at some of these places, or hook up with other festivals, as mentioned, the sci-fi conventions, or maybe a literary or book festival, and see if you can get a stall there, either to pre-sell your book or to take copies of your book once it's printed. So there are lots of different ways you can advertise and promote your book. You could network with other local authors or other writers and writing events to do readings and guest talks. If it's a children's book, obviously you could connect up maybe with schools to come in and do readings and maybe events, or libraries or other children's festivals. So think about, what's my genre, who my audience are, where might they be hanging out, what other things do they like, and that might give you a starting point on where and how to market your book. We hope you've enjoyed watching our video, and as mentioned before, do get in touch if you have any questions at all, and work through the workbook to help you identify how you want to get your book published, what your areas of strength are, where you can do things for yourself, or where you might outsource to friends, family, or professionals. So you can then use the workbook against maybe the budget you have for publishing your book, and ways maybe that you could generate income to help fund different areas. So for example, if you wanted to get a short print run done, you may want to do some pre-sales to fund that, and you can think of different ways to get your book into print.